Jack, and welcome back, because today I'm going to give you guys my review for this prequel movie within this horror franchise that just came out in theaters recently, A Quiet Place Day One. This time it is directed by Michael Sarnoski, the director of Nicolas Cage's Pig, and it stars Lupita Nyong'o, Joseph Quinn, Djimon Hounsou, Alex Wolff, and more. Let me know down below in the comments, what are your thoughts on this movie? I'd love to know that. And with that said, let's get started. Set right from the beginning of this alien invasion, the movie follows a woman named Sam and other survivors as they try to find a way to safety as the city comes under attack. As they learn that they must remain absolutely silent in order to survive from these creatures, the fight for survival begins. I was really excited for this movie because I am a big fan of the A Quiet Place series. The first two movies from John Krasinski, I think, are amazing modern-day horror movies. They're intense, and I love this story idea of monsters who are able to kill you just by hearing a sound, and that they have really high sensitive hearing that makes them able to hear things even from further distances, and us having to stay silent in order to survive in this apocalyptic world. And I think what John Krasinski and the crew were able to do with those first two movies, I think was great. It's amazing, and they're some of my favorite horror movies of the last couple of years. And with this prequel, we have Michael Sarnoski directing this movie, and I was really excited to see how this invasion started, how it all began when they came to Earth and chaos ensues. And I love the cast assembled here, and I loved what I saw in the trailer, so I was really optimistic for it. And I'm super happy to say that A Quiet Place Day One is a really strong prequel that's intense, scary, and I love how it shows us how this invasion started, and is carried by two marvelous performances from Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn. Michael Sarnoski directed this movie marvelously. He really captures this apocalyptic and gruesome setting of a New York City under fire from these high sensitive sound creatures that are able to kill you with just hearing one sound, no matter the distance. And what he was able to accomplish here, taking the reins from John Krasinski, I think is really good. He is really good at depicting the intensity of the situation, making me care for our two lead characters here, who are wonderfully portrayed by Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn as our leads, Sam and Eric. And I gotta say, I also love Frodo the cat, and I would protect that cat with my life.
Oh, yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
What this movie was able to accomplish with telling us how this world started this alien invasion and got into that place, I think is really cool, especially how pretty early on it establishes Sam as a character, what she's going through, what's her situation, and what happens to her when this invasion takes place, and what she will do to survive. And even when Joseph Quinn's Eric joins along her, it's just really fun. They both have really good chemistry. Both of them are really good as these characters, and I really connected with them in this really dangerous life and death situation that they are in. And the creatures in this movie are just as horrifying as I hoped there would be. There are settings in this movie that involve an escalator and this underground subway station, and even with all the buildings surrounding New York City, where I was on edge.
Our universe is doomed! Doomed!
It had really good jump scares, as I hoped it would be. It's horrifying, and it never lets up the tension all the way through. And I love how it still retains a lot of the key details we know about A Quiet Place, like how these creatures can hear you and how could you avoid them and whether it's okay to speak. Really well put together here, and it really captures the big scope of New York City, because the first two movies are a lot more smaller scale. The first movie takes place within this town where there's only a limited number of creatures. Two goes bigger, there's more locations, and there's even more creatures than before. This time we are in a big city like New York, but we're focusing on it right when the invasion had started, which I think is a cool idea that is executed really well within the story. And Djimon Hounsou from A Quiet Place Part 2 shows up in Day One for a brief but very effective role. And what he has in this movie in terms of his scenes is incredible. Some of my favorite scenes in this whole movie, and it's so effective with what his character goes through despite knowing what happens to him in A Quiet Place Part 2. And it continues to make the world of A Quiet Place feel even bigger than ever as this franchise goes on, and how it connects to the original series from John Krasinski, I think is really cool. and it's a really thrilling movie to sit through. Whereas maybe A Quiet Place Parts 1 and 2 are a little bit more thrilling, Day One has really intimate moments that I think are really powerful with our characters, and that you really buy into this friendship that they have developed in a really dark time like this. And so I was really hoping that both of them would make it out safely, despite all the odds that are stacked against them. And visually, it's marvelous. One of the best looking horror movies in recent years. It's really well put together with effective jump scares, really intense scenes where I was on edge. It's got some of the best jump scares and best moments in this whole franchise. And I really enjoyed just this overall journey we go on that makes it feel very different from A Quiet Place Parts 1 and 2. And I really liked how this works as a prequel to that, where it was really nice to see how all this started and where it's going to end up by the time we meet the characters from the first two movies. And I think it's done in a really satisfying manner with a really strong third act that's really intense and riveting to sit through. And it had a really powerful conclusion that really left me satisfied and in emotions because of how raw and good it was. I don't have too much in terms of issues with Day One, but I do have a few, and that includes how we see a lot of characters and crowds, and how does that not really attract the monsters until something big happens, because you have all these people together, and there's a little bit of sound happening, so I wonder how that wasn't really depicted by these creatures. And then the other just being the fact that there are some things that happen in this movie that, while intense, I do wonder how exactly would that be the ideal or greatest character way to get out of certain situations because of everything that is going on, what we knew about this location. But it doesn't really mean as much because the story was so good. And on top of that, a lot of the things that happen in this movie for our characters and these scary situations are usually done really well to where I can overlook some of those things. All in all, I loved A Quiet Place Day One. It is a great prequel led wonderfully by Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn, with really good directing from Michael Sarnoski and a story that is intense, thrilling, full of heart, and two really good characters with a lot of really good scares from this franchise that develops how this invasion started. So it left me speechless, and I really enjoyed it as a whole. So in the end, I'm going to give A Quiet Place Day One an A-. The A Quiet Place franchise is one of my favorite horror franchises right now, and I'm glad to see that this movie is another success for this series, and I'm really excited to see them return to the main series with a potential A Quiet Place Part 3, because I love Part 2, and I'm wondering if they're going to continue that trilogy and see where this franchise will go from here, because this is a worthy prequel that complements the original two movies very well, and it is done so well. And I can't wait to see what Michael Sarnoski does after this as a director. He has a lot of promise with this and Pig, and it's just really good as a whole. It's a great horror movie, one of my favorites of the year, so I cannot wait for you all to see this, and I can't wait to see what's next for the A Quiet Place franchise. So yeah, that's my review for A Quiet Place Day One. What are your thoughts on it? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. Stay tuned for some upcoming videos I have planned very soon. And don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below. So please go do that while you're at it. And thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button. And stay tuned for more.